Welcome to the WORKOLOGY podcast, a podcast for the disruptive workplace leader. Join host Jessica Miller-Merrill, founder of WORKOLOGY.com, as she sits down and gets to the bottom of trends, tools, and case studies for the business leader, HR, and recruiting professional who is tired of the status quo. Now here's Jessica with this episode of WORKOLOGY.
It seems a week doesn't go by that the topic of workplace diversity isn't in the global or national news. Diversity is an important topic of discussion for employers, especially those who are government contractors, but also companies that are committed to hiring and retaining employees from a variety of backgrounds and experiences beyond women, minorities, veterans, and LGBT. Maybe you're thinking about starting up a diversity recruiting program, or you're looking for ways to expand your current efforts. I'm a firm believer that diversity provides companies an opportunity to employ professionals with different backgrounds, experiences that are personal or professional. The question is, where do we start, stop, and begin? That's what we're talking about today on the WORKOLOGY podcast. Nisha Ravigan is a talent attraction specialist at the American Heart Association. Nisha, welcome to the WORKOLOGY podcast.
Hey, Jessica, thank you so much for having me on the show. Great fan of the show, by the way, and it's an honor to be here.
Let's talk a little bit about your background and your path to getting to the American Heart Association.
Sure. To talk a little bit about my background, I started off my career back in India as an HR business partner for a for-profit company named Reliance Communications Limited. Then I transitioned to the nonprofit world and currently takes care of talent acquisition and employer branding efforts at the nation's oldest and largest voluntary health organization, the American Heart Association. Well, I must say, in the middle of this transition, I saw myself as a full-time HR blogger, a broadcaster, and a social HR geek, if you will. And I'm on Twitter as the HR buddy. So if you can give me a shout out on Twitter, that would be great.
Nisha's very well known in the blogosphere, in the HR space with the podcast. And then one of my favorite things was the India HR Live show, which was always a lot of fun when you've done those in the past.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was actually a great platform for me to bridge the gap between our global HR professionals, right? I mean, the HR practices that we do over here in the United States would almost be the same, if you ask me, in India, but then the audience is different. The cultural difference is something that we can highlight always, all the time. And then we, over here in the United States, now that we are working with a diverse population, I'm for sure that's been a great help for all of us in terms of sharing and learning some of the best practices that we do around the world.
I love it because it just brings the world together and technology. So you've done a great job with doing those kind of things.
Thank you.
Well, the topic today is expanding your diversity recruiting with the American Heart Association. So let's talk a little bit about the American Heart's diversity efforts. What are you guys doing right now?
So before I talk more about the diversity effort, I want to give our audience some context on what we do at the American Heart Association, right? Because most of the time when we hear the word nonprofit organization, they might think that it is, a voluntary organization. It is mostly about volunteering jobs. But then we do have departments and jobs just like any for-profit organizations out there. So to the point, at American Heart Association, we are dedicated to reducing health disparities as we fight cardiovascular diseases and stroke on behalf of all Americans, if you will. And when I say all Americans, and those are, people of all races, ethnicities, gender, religion, ages, sexual orientation, national orientation, and it goes like that, right? Geographical regions and disabilities. So our mission is to improve cardiovascular health for all Americans, and we do this by delivering culturally competent programs to these diverse groups. So from that diversity recruiting efforts, it's actually, part of our DNA, because the departments over here at the American Heart Association is divided in such a manner that, we need to target women out there, youth market out there, children's out there, African Americans and Hispanics out there. So from a recruiting diversity recruiting perspective, we do partner with 366 volunteer associations or diversity associations and groups. And then we do build a relationship with them in terms of letting them know what are some of the initiatives that we do and what are some of the positions that we have. And then the veteran organizations, we do work very closely with them. And then we do conduct AHA career fairs exclusively for veteran groups out there. So that helps them in terms of understanding, what they need to do to get back to that workforce again, which is entirely different than what they have been doing in their career for so long. So that goes about a little bit of a training in terms of how they need to tweak their resume, how they need to find the jobs, utilizing our career site and network with the recruiters and things of that nature. So I'm for sure going forward, we'll be talking more about it in terms of what kind of initiatives that we have done so far for revamping our career site. Let's say, for example, we worked with our partner, direct employers, and then we created microsites to engage and help this job search easier for our communities out there. For example, we have microsites for veterans and microsites for disabilities. And one of the things that I wanted to highlight is the difference of searching job after your military background, because your occupation code would not be the same as what's been outside in a corporate world. So our career site, the microsite, has been designed in such a way that our veterans can enter their military code that will then give them the type of a job that is similar to the type of the job that they have been doing. So I guess that will be a great help for them.
I think having that military translator on your site is really great, because it sounds like that you're educating veterans whether or not they come to work at your company or not. So you're just providing them with information, giving them background, letting them know about American Heart, but then you're also helping them with future employers, whether it's American Heart or someone else, with all these tools and resources.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. And in fact, our own employees are our best resource out there when it comes to bringing in that diverse talent. They are our number one ambassadors out there, right? And they do partner with, or they might be a member of different groups out there. So when it comes to, let's say, they know that a particular job is out there where someone from that military background would be a right fit, they normally bring in references, and then we help them out in terms of going through the job application process.
I think that's an important point for you to make, because when you're talking about your veteran career fairs and programs, part of me is thinking, okay, how do they get people to those programs? How do you make sure that you have 100 people show up to a career fair? I think that's a fear of maybe a lot of our listeners, and you're tapping into your employee population as well, which is nice.
It is. And then we utilize our partner, as I said, direct employer, and they have their PRM system, my.jobs, and we have about, I think, 350 or so groups out there. So we do push out this content in a much more engaging manner, so that they know mostly about, what they can expect in this program, what's in it for them, right? It's not just an avenue to learn more about the job. It's also an avenue to build a relationship with the human being, which is our recruiters from our company, so that they can connect and ask their questions and then continue that conversation going forward.
You have a very public diversity recruiting and hiring report. I'll link to it at the end of the transcript of this podcast over on the Workology site. Can you talk about your Go Red for Women program as it relates to African American outreach?
Oh, shout out to our Go Red for Women group. They are awesome. Period. So to give a little bit more context to what this Go Red for Women is, Go Red actually launched 13 years ago to, help raise awareness for women health. So we might not know, the symptoms of women heart disease versus the symptoms of men's heart disease. They might be, symptoms are different. And then the Go Red for Women, they do help raise awareness by presenting a lot of educational programs, and then present different, tracking that they have throughout their market research and findings, and then increase awareness on that. And then Macy's has been our founding sponsor for Go Red for Men. So when it comes to going back to your point, Jessica, about African American outreach, our Go Red for Women is the whole spectrum. That means the big umbrella, if you will. It's the entire women group, right? So among that, let's say the African American women are at greater risk for cardiovascular diseases than women of any other ethnic group. And if you ask me, nearly half, 47% of African American women have some form of heart disease compared to 34% of white women out there, which is a metrics that I really wanted to, share, right? So as part of Go Red for Women, we do have several programs to kind of interact with this diverse audience, irrespective of which women group that they are in. Let's say we have African American, Latinos or Hispanics, and then we have, millennials and baby boomers that are of different age. So the programs are structured in such a way that they can engage with these particular groups. And then we have Go Red for Women luncheon across the country for, getting the support in local communities, in the local market. So, for example, LA might be having a Go Red for Women event, which might be entirely different than the targeted audience that we have at Dallas Go Red for Women group, right? So they do come up with different programs in order to attract their targeted audience. Going back to that, diversity piece of it, yes, our volunteers and our sponsors who do partner with these type of events, let's say, for example, Go Red for Women Luncheon or Red Dress Collection, that is our annual program in February, mostly to kick off Fashion Week in New York, which is a great avenue to bring awareness of heart disease and stroke disease. So our volunteers and sponsors, when they contact or when they are in these type of programs, they do spread the word of the job opportunities that we have, and mainly, as you can see, if we have one person that we have at our organization who can relate to the communities that we serve, we can work most effectively. That happens in any other job, irrespective of you are a for-profit organization or a non-profit organization, right? So that's what we are doing. We are getting the help of our volunteers and sponsors and strategic alliance group that are out there in terms of bringing the awareness and spreading the word. And bringing that diverse talent to our organization.
Well, I love that you're taking an existing program and driving awareness and then also using it as an opportunity to recruit talent as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because today morning I talked to our VP of Go Red for Women. I was just saying, hey, I'm going to talk to you on our podcast. So that's also one thing that she highlighted is that, if we can relate to the community that we are targeting, and if we have one person or a group of people who can relate to, that would be really great, because they can easily open up to you, they can relate to you, and they can see themselves working with you. And every day, it's not a day in and day out at an organization like American Heart Association. You need to be having that passion in order to make a difference. And this opportunity that you have every single day is something that I keep very closer to my heart, and I really value a lot, because every single day, the job that you are doing is making an impact out there. So I respect that.
Well, we can definitely hear the passion in your voice. And let's take a bit of a reset here. This is Jessica Miller Merrill, and you're listening to the Workology podcast. Today, we're talking about diversity recruiting strategy, how to get started, how to expand with Nisha Raghavan. You can follow Nisha on Twitter at the HR buddy. So it's the HR and buddy. Let's get back to questions here. One of the biggest barriers to diversity recruiting for many is the belief that having a diversity first recruiting strategy will make your recruiting process longer and more drawn out. But you guys have maybe found this not to be true. Can you talk with us a little bit about that?
Well, I'm for sure, just like any other change out there, our senior officials must have faced some kind of a challenge. But then this type of initiatives, as I said, Go Red for Women have started, let's say, 13 years ago, right? So we have come a long way. And as I said at the very beginning, the organization is structured in such a way that, it's in our DNA. So I've seen that, throughout many years, what we have done in order to break that barrier or in order to work more effectively, what we have done is that building that diversity into the business plan. And that's how we divided our department just based on that. Let's say we have a department specifically for Go Red for Women, which is serving the entire women community. We have a department for youth market and field campaigns, which is specifically targeted towards our youth, children, and conducting that awareness in those fields. And then we have department like multicultural markets, which is an amazing department, around 100% are, diverse employees in that department. And they focus mainly on African Americans, Hispanic and Latinos, and communities of faith, if you will. So it's been built into the business plan. So it is actually easier for us to target that particular community because we are directly connected with that community in each and every single day, if you will. And then we have created programs within our organization to enhance that cultural and diversity intelligence among our AHA employees. So we have the training and online diversity courses as part of our learning management system. And then we tell our employees to, go through that training. And apart from that, there is, on a one-on-one basis training courses as well happening. So on every single day when you are working and collaborating with people sitting next to you, they are from a different background, and you really need to know, what's it like to be them, right? Then only you can relate to them. So that's something that we do as part of creating that diversity intelligence within AHA. And then partnership with our leaders. So we have our CEO Diversity Advocacy Cabinet. And our CEO, Nancy Brown, serves as the chair for our CEO Diversity Advocacy Cabinet, which develop ways to enhance the cultural competence of our staff and volunteers. And the cabinet is made of a cross-functional team, a diverse group of staff members. And then the leaders in that staff members, they have to own diversity because, they must become a true champion for our staff to embrace and respect that diversity piece of it, right? So, and then as you can see, we have this big umbrella, and underneath that, you will have different subcommittees wherein, let's say, for example, people who are targeted, working closely more towards that education piece of it and working closely towards that, collaboration piece of it, and etc.
Awesome. And I will say that you can learn more about the case study and their diversity program and how it is actually decreasing their time to fill with all these different pieces. It sounds very complex, but it sounds like also a well-oiled machine. There's a really great HROS case study that's HR open source that we'll link to in the transcript of the podcast as well over on the workology.com site.
Yeah, that link has all the info in it in terms of giving you a little bit more background towards what we have done so far and what's been working for us.
The American Heart Association, as you are very well aware, or you should be, is very active, and I mean very active on social media. And personally, I love it as a social media user, power user, and someone who just loves social media. I wanted to ask Nisha, how is this activity on social, helping your diversity recruiting programs?
I would say, it has to start from within. We don't just focus on one particular aspect, saying that, yeah, we need to focus, more diverse candidates and bring in that diverse candidate, right? Because this is actually one brand, and our employees and even our target audience, which is our candidate pool out there, wanting to know more about, what it is like to work at the American Heart Association. So we normally focus more on giving that picture to our audience, irrespective of if it is internal or external. So we came up with an AHA Life, the AHA Life Ambassador Program, for our employees to actually share, what are they up to? So normally our employees would be at different events that they are part of, as I said earlier, Godred for Women, for example, and then they normally share their pictures and having fun at those events on the hashtag #DHALife. So check out that hashtag to learn more about it. So going back to that diversity piece of it, it is a targeted approach, of course, a targeted campaign. We do come up with a post and pictures that resonate with our audience. So, for example, last time, Veterans Day, we highlighted our employees sharing their own testimonial in terms of how they started working or how they found their career at AHA, and what were some of the challenges that they had and how they overcome. So this is actually a guidance from our own employees in terms of how they transition from that military career to a corporate career, and then how they started their career at AHA. And I'm for sure, seeing that post, any other veteran who are out there and interested in searching a job at AHA would be able to easily relate to our organization. So right at this point, we have about 25% of our new hires come from our employee referral, and that's through sharing jobs via their social media platforms or word of mouth, or they will then share through email or not. So it's been a great success so far. I know we are just in the initial stages of launching that DHA Life Ambassador program to our employees and providing those training for them, how to represent your organization and how to become an ambassador for your own work and for your own organization. So the training program involves taking them through that social media piece of it, social media guidelines piece of it, and how to, post some content that resonates with the brand. So those training include social media training, personal branding training, and a lot of networking opportunities with other employees within AHA.
I love it. And what social platform are you seeing the best results right now when it comes to diversity?
So it depends. I would say that, instead of focusing on, one platform, you just spread it out and mostly focus on about meeting people where they are. Your audience, say, for example, some audience might be on Twitter. For example, the millennials might be on Twitter or Instagram, but they might not be on Facebook, because most of them consider Facebook as a private platform for them. So what's been worked for me is that I use the right messaging. For example, messaging is very, very important, because it's not just about sharing or tweeting a job. It's about sharing your workplace. It's about giving a glimpse to your audience in terms of what it is like to work with your organization, so that your candidate can relate to you, your audience can relate to you. So messaging is really important for us. And the next important aspect is where you share that message. Understand where your target audience are. So for example, if I'm targeting African American women, I normally look at specific groups on LinkedIn that are, African American women are out there who are actively involved in those conversations on those LinkedIn groups. Or for example, if I'm looking at millennials who I want to attract, let's say, the diverse college campuses out there, I normally target our Instagram platform and then highlight some posts over there. So it's basically understand where your audience is and then come up with a message that can help them resonate and relate to you.
Can you talk about how you're involving your hiring managers and your employees? I mean, you talked about the ambassador program, but what about hiring managers when it comes to your recruiting diversity efforts?
So, going back to one of our previous point, as our CEO diversity cabinet, our leaders has to own diversity, right? They have to be a champion in order to bring in more diverse talent to their group. So, our hiring managers know that they need to encourage more diverse talent into the interview panel. So we make sure that at least one diverse candidate is in there in the final list of our, candidate pool. And then we normally make sure that our recruiters make sure that, let's say, everybody says that we get tons of applicants for one single job, and we might not have time to go through each and every single applications, right? But what we do at AHA is like we ran a report and make sure that if we have any diverse talent out there, and again, if they self-identify that they are a diverse talent, then only we will know about it. But we will know if there is any reference that has come up. So I'm for sure employee reference are mostly of diverse talent in nature. So we ran a report to know how many employee reference we received, and are those applicants are good enough for the job that we are looking for? Do they have the right skill set or not? And then bring them into the interview at AHA. So, and our hiring managers, they are a great help in terms of bringing in reference. So, for example, the multicultural markets team that I told you at the very beginning, they are awesome. Whenever they have any positions, I don't have to, I don't have to search for a talent out there. They bring in references, and it's just a matter of, okay, we have this many candidates in our reference program, and who is the best right fit for the job, for the organization, and for the team. That's our next question. So most of the time our hiring managers, they do bring in references, and then alumni. The people who have worked here, they always wanted to come back. And I've seen that most of the time after taking a break from AHA, they always wanted to come back and see if they have any other potential joining AHA. And then, so that is actually another great pool that we have. That our hiring managers bring in. Okay, I have this list of people who worked with me a long time ago. Let's see if they are available, and then find out, if we can bring them in.
Awesome. Well, Nisha, thank you so much for joining us today. Where can people go to learn more about you and what you do?
People can chime in on my Twitter at the HR Buddy, and I'm always active and on Twitter, so you can easily track me there and find out more about AHA and our jobs on our career site, careers.hot.org, and check out our hashtag #TheAHALife.
Awesome. And we'll link to all those things in the transcript over on the Workology site. Thank you to Nisha for joining us, and thank you to you for taking the time to listen to this episode of the Workology podcast, a podcast for the disruptive workplace leader who's tired of the status quo. This is Jessica Miller-Merrill, and until next time, you can visit workology.com to listen to all our previous Workology podcast episodes.
Production services for the Workology podcast with Jessica Miller-Merrill provided by TotalPicture.com.